weeks has been getting more controversial publicity than even Axl Rose in the States. Sebastian Bach is the lead singer with New Jersey up-and-coming band Skid Row, who are managed by Doc McGee, Bon Jovi's manager, and they're seen by many as the heirs apparent to the Bon Jovi throne. Now, Skid Row were playing a show in Springfield, Massachusetts on December the 27th, where they were supporting Aerosmith. Sebastian was struck on stage by a bottle which was hurled from the audience, much as Doc Neeson was all those years ago at the Sydney Opera House. Now, Sebastian threw the bottle back into the crowd and then leapt boots first, in fact, into the audience. He was arrested after the show and has already appeared in court. We have a full report coming up, but first let's have a look at exactly what happened that night in Springfield, Massachusetts.
I don't know what his name is. Who the f*** did that, man? Who the f*** did that? There's nothing in it. Was that you? Is that you? If you're so tough, I dare you to come up here right now and give him a piece.
Yes, ugly scenes. That footage captured by an amateur cameraman who was on site, and the finest traditions of rock and roll being upheld there by Sebastian Bach. I jest. There's a lot of people very upset about it, including those that were hurt, obviously. This report from John Norris.
You know, it was an unusual quirk in Skid Row's tour schedule with Aerosmith that found them making their second trip to Springfield, Massachusetts in 2 weeks. For Sebastian Bach, that meant a second trip here, to the Hampton County Hall of Justice. It all stems from an incident of concert violence that allegedly took place December 27th over at Springfield Civic Center. That's the night that Sebastian allegedly responded to being hit by a bottle thrown from the audience by throwing a bottle back into the crowd and seriously injuring the face of a 17-year-old girl. He then allegedly jumped into the crowd and kicked the chin of a male member of the audience. Even for a guy with a rowdy reputation like Sebastian's, these are pretty serious charges. The name on the court docket read Sebastian Birk, but everyone knew who the defendant was. Metal's #1 sex symbol, uncharacteristically decked out in a jacket and tie, was moved to an upstairs courtroom to avoid a crush of fans. But there were no smiles as he heard the full slate of charges against him. 2 counts of assault and battery, 2 counts of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, and 1 count of mayhem. Bach's plea, not guilty to all charges, and his attorney would not say much more than that as they left the court.
Today, Sebastian has pled not guilty. By his plea of not guilty, Sebastian has said that he is not guilty of the criminal charges filed against him. This case is going to be tried in the courts, and there will be no further comment made by the defense until the conclusion of the case. Thank you.
3 of the 5 charges against Sebastian represent a maximum jail term of 10 years. The most disturbing among them may be mayhem, a charge of violence in which maiming or disfigurement is involved. That charge, of course, arises from the young woman hit by the bottle, who reportedly suffered severe facial cuts and bruises. As recently as yesterday, the Springfield City Council hinted that it might try to keep Skid Row off of tonight's bill. That never happened, to the delight of Skid Row fans, who, despite the incident, are sticking by Sebastian.
I don't think he should go to jail or nothing or get arrested. That's not right. It's not his fault for somebody that threw the bottle and hit him in the head with it.
I guess he could have dealt it differently, but I know if it was me, I would have went right after him, too.
If they want to be just, they should get the guy who threw the bottle.
And several people we spoke with said that bottle was thrown as the result of a bet.
They're standing next to us. They're like, oh, I bet you can't hit Sebastian Bach. I'll bet you $50 you won't be able to hit him with the bottle. And then they threw it, and I guess they did hit him.
But what was a bottle doing in the arena in the first place? Apparently, the Springfield Civic Center does not check concert audiences for bottles and cans, as many venues do. Fans say that's negligent, and indications are Sebastian's lawyers will say the same. Civic Center spokesman Mike Graney says the arena's policy of not checking for bottles is a result of another court decision.
There was a suit brought against the city, I think 10 years ago, challenging the city's right to search on civil rights grounds. There was an agreement reached in that suit, and that agreement governs our policies and what we can and cannot do. I think there's some sense on several people that we think that should be modified, but as it stands right now, there's a federal court decree that says we can do this and we can't do some other things. We follow that decree.
So are you more, as far as you know, restricted than, say, other cities and other venues in other cities?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
As for the girl who was injured at the concert, Skid Row's manager Scott McGee tells me that Sebastian has yet to meet with her, but he says he's very concerned about her and would like to do so. As for Sebastian himself, well, he's out on $10,000 bail once again, as he has been for the last 2 weeks. The tour with Aerosmith continues, and a trial date has been set for here in Springfield on May 15th.
Well, the new bad boy on the block, Sebastian Bach, the lead singer from Skid Row, is in serious trouble. He goes to court on May the 15th over an incident where he jumped into the audience, seriously injuring some people, one person in particular, after he was struck on the head with a flying bottle. It's all a bit of a messy one, and we'll bring you the results of the court case when they happen. But we've put together a little before and after, if you like, package with footage of the incident and also excerpts of an interview I did with Skid Row in New York last year, just before they played that ill-fated show. A little look at Skid Row.
There's a lot of times, like for the opening act, the security guards, they won't let the people stand up or anything like that during the first couple of rows. And Bass jumps into the audience and picks people up and says, stand up. You're not at a movie, you know. It's like right on. Yeah. It's very cool because you're there to have a good time, you know. And if they're just sitting there and you're looking at them and you're up there sweating and stuff and they're sitting there, you know, he runs out there and picks them right up and says, get off your ass. It's cool.
I pickpocket them on, dude.
By his plea of not guilty, Sebastian has said that he is not guilty of the criminal charges filed against him. This case is going to be tried in the courts, and there will be no further comment made by the defense until the conclusion of the case. Thank you.
Some guys don't like me and stuff, and I go, hey, man, I was a jerk long before I was in a rock band.
Yes, those words may well come back to haunt young Sebastian Bach. Skid Row, that whole incident's given them far more notoriety in the States. I guess that's been pretty good for record sales and stuff. Their debut album has now sold over 3 million copies in America, and this is the 4th release from that. A big ballad that's probably their best chance of breaking through in Australia. The video was shot in New York City, and the down and outer in the clip is an actor, but we're assured that there really were plenty of real-life street people around while they were shooting. I Remember You, Skid Row.